Hi there, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lee and I love to yap and chit chat about all things books. So if you were new here, welcome, maybe stay a while, and if you've been here before, welcome back. Today I am posting 25 books that I want to read in 2025, except this is probably going to be a little bit of a speedy video as I do like to go into my books blind most of the time. So I'm going to put the Instagram posts that I made here, and I will kind of talk about a little bit about why they're on my TBR for 2025, and we're just going to go from there. These first 5 books are all books that are coming out this year from authors that I love. Some of these authors are coming out with more than one book, and I'm super excited about that. The first book is B.K. Borison coming out with Good Spirits. She also is coming out with First Time Caller, which I believe is officially out right now or coming out in February. I'm super excited for both of these books. I really loved her Love Light Farms book, and I haven't finished the rest of that series, but First Time Caller really intrigued me because it is a radio show, and I believe it's set in either Chicago or New York, but I'm really excited about that. And one of my best friends read an early release of it and said that it was absolutely incredible, so I'm really excited to check out that book. But between the two, Good Spirits is the one that I am most excited about. It is coming out at the end of October, and it is a mix of a Halloween and Christmas holiday book, and I believe it has something to do with ghosts and paranormal activity as well, so really excited about that. I love Hannah Bonham Young. I read Next of Kin and Out on a Limb, and I'm super excited for Out of the Woods. She has 2 series going at once, the kind of Next Something series and then the Out Whatever series. So Out on a Limb came first, and this Out of the Woods follows up Out on a Limb, and it follows the main character from Out on a Limb's best friends, and they are a married couple who are kind of struggling to rekindle and save their marriage. So I'm really excited about that. I think it's going to be amazing, knowing Hannah Bonham Young, and the reviews I've seen of it so far from people who've had early releases have said it is just chef's kiss. Honestly, both books I've read by Hannah Bonham Young and her novella for the holidays have been amazing. I've never read a book I didn't like by her, so I have really high hopes for that. So yeah, it's coming out this coming week, so I'm hopefully going to get that and read that soon. Lila Sage is coming out with 2 books this year. One of them, the cover has not been released yet, but the first book coming out in April is Wild and Wrangled. It is the last book in her Chestnut Springs series, which is my favorite series, and she is my favorite author. So I'm really excited. I think it will be my favorite book in the series. I'm not going to say too much about it because you meet the characters in the beginning of the series, like throughout the series, so I don't want to give away who it is, but it is a second chance friends to lovers romance with a single mom, and I'm just really excited for it. Knowing these 2 characters, I think it's going to hit home the most for me, and it will probably be my favorite in the series, if I can pick a favorite in this series, because that might be really hard for me. I have a lot of Ali Hazelwood books on my TBR this year. I read Bride last year and fell head over heels for it. I recently was gifted Love Theoretically and Not in Love, and I'm really excited to read both of those. I'm planning on reading Not in Love in February because it's just very Valentine's Day looking, and so I'm going to probably read it then. But Miss Ali Hazelwood is dipping her toes into the sports romance sphere with her new book, Deep End. All I know about this is it's the Queen Ali Hazelwood and it's a swimming romance. That's all I need to know. That's all I need to know, and I'm super excited for it, and I can't wait to be able to pick it up. And I'm also kind of obsessed with this cover. The next 5 books are a kind of more fantasy section of my TBR. The first book that I'm going to pick up is Black Tide Sun, which is the second book to Darkwater Daughter. I am not sure if it is going to pick up where Darkwater Daughter left off, or if it's going to be kind of an interconnected series. From where it left off, I believe it will be, but it will have more of an emphasis on getting to know our main male character. So I'm very excited about that. I love pirates and I'm really excited. There's a couple of other pirate books that I have on my TBR this year. So I'm excited to finish that duology because I don't love to have duologies hanging in kind of my library of collections. The next book on this list is A City of Souls and Sinners, which I am actually currently reading. It is the second book to A City of Gods and Monsters, so you do have to read it because it is interconnected. And it's a big boy. It is 800 pages, but I am hopefully going to finish it by the end of this month. So I'm going to save my thoughts for it later, but it picks up where we leave off with A City of Gods and Monsters, and it follows Lauren Kala and Darien Castle as they move through the world after everything that's kind of happened in the first book, and it has a very similar vibe so far to the first book. So if you like early 2000s, late 90s fantasy TV shows like The Vampire Diaries or Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I think you'd probably like the vibe of this book. It's very fun and easy to read. The next book on my list I don't know too much about, and I kind of don't want to go into it with too much knowledge. It is called Metal Slinger. I saw everyone talking about Metal Slinger in a similar way that they were talking about Quicksilver, and I went into Quicksilver blind last year and absolutely adored it. So I kind of want to go into Metal Slinger just as blind. All I really know for sure about it is I know for sure it's fae. I'm pretty sure there's also a hint of pirates in there. I could be wrong, but I really hope so. Either way, I've heard absolutely amazing things. My favorite booktubers who recommend things have all recommended it, so I'm just really excited about that. This year we have Fearless coming out by Lauren Roberts, and that is definitely going to be on my list, but before then I do want to read Reckless. I read Powerless and Powerful last year, and I know Reckless came out last year, but I had a feeling it was going to be a longer wait for this new book, Fearless, and I hate leaving things on cliffhangers. I read the Divine Rivals series, and I hated being left on that big cliffhanger, so I purposefully decided to save Reckless until now and read it kind of closer to the release date of Fearless. So that also picks up at the end of Powerless. It follows Kai and Peyton again, and I don't want to get into it too much, but I kind of know where it's going to go. So I am excited to continue that series. I know there's kind of some controversies around this series, but I have personally been enjoying it. Another new release that is a fantasy is The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. And I discovered Rachel Gillig last year when I read One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns, and it's my favorite fantasy series of all time now. I thought that was so beautifully written. I love Rachel Gillig's style of writing. I love the world that she created, so I'm really excited to see what this world is going to be like and where that kind of goes. I don't know too much about it, and I'm really excited to not know too much about it, so I'm hyped for it. I can't wait for it to come out. They're my kind of 5 sports romances that I definitely want to read this year, and it is heavy on hockey. I am a hockey romance girl, and I am just, I'm super excited to get through these. So starting off with Mile High, I do want to get through this whole Windy City series at some point, but I am going to start with Mile High. I saw this the first time when it was recommended to me on what is your zodiac sign and what book series is for your zodiac sign, and for Virgo it was this Windy City series, so that made me want to add it to my TBR. I honestly don't have high hopes for Mile High though, because I have heard from a lot of people that it's their least favorite book in the series, and a lot of people actually told me that I should just skip the first book, and I don't think I can do that because that would hurt my heart, but I am going to read this series on Kindle instead of buying it in a physical copy. The next book is The Mistake by Elle Kennedy. I don't know why I put the second book here, but I do want to finish this whole series. I ended up reading The Deal at the beginning of this month, so I guess it is fitting that The Mistake is on there because it's the next book in the series. I accidentally read The Graham Effect first, absolutely adored it, and then decided, I should probably go back and read the rest of this series, or like the first series with their parents. So I'm making my way through that. There's also a TikTok audio from The Score, and I am obsessed with it. And honestly, I think The Score will be my favorite book in the series just from that audio alone. But yeah, I'm really excited to get through this whole series. I don't know if I'll get through all of it this year. I typically read hockey romances in the winter, and then the rest of the year I switch to other sports romance books. So we'll see how many I can get through before we wait till next year. Rival Darling and Unsteady are two hockey romances that I have heard a lot about, but I don't know too much about. I want to kind of branch out in hockey romances from just reading Hannah Grace and Elle Kennedy. I feel like as of right now, those are the only hockey romances I've really read. There's a couple I've read on Kindle Unlimited since then, but I do want to kind of diversify the sport specific hockey sport romances that I'm reading and not stick to one specific author. So yeah, that's why both of these are on there. And I don't really have too much to say about them, but I'm curious and excited to read them. I'm a huge Formula One fan, and the Formula One books that I have read in the past have been fairly disappointing. I've only ever had one that I actually enjoyed. So I'm really excited to read Cross the Line by Simone Soltani. I have heard this is a good F1 book, but then again, I find that a lot of people who write the Formula One books aren't actually fans of Formula One, and so they don't know the sport. And I'm sure that the way I'm feeling about Formula One books is the way that people who actually follow hockey and like hockey feel about hockey romances or football or baseball or anything like that. But I do have high hopes because I'm pretty sure Simone Soltani is a Formula One fan. So fingers crossed with that. And hopefully we can kind of see where that goes. The next 5 books are very specifically romance. So like I said before, Ali Hazelwood's Not in Love is on my list. I have a physical copy of it that was a gift that I got recently. So I will be reading that probably in February and then picking up Deep End, and then maybe later in the year I'll read Love Theoretically. Before that is Chasing the Wild, which is a small town ex-boyfriend's dad book. And that is a trope I haven't read before. And so I'm excited. I love a small town cowboy romance, so I'm intrigued, but hesitant. I don't know if I'm gonna love it. Gonna be really honest. It will probably either be a book I adore and I become obsessed with, or one that's not for me, and I'm kind of prepared for it to go either way. So we will see which way it goes. Next book I actually had on my TBR last year and I didn't get the chance to read it, but it is Homebound by Meredith Trapp, and I followed her on Instagram because I kept seeing the promotions for this book for when it was coming out, and I was like, I'm gonna have to read it instantly, not knowing that there was a first book in this series. And although they are standalones, I did really want to read the first one. So I read Icebound in January. It has an underlying tone of hockey through the series because they're all hockey players, but this one specifically is single dad going home to his hometown and falling for the cowgirl barrel racer, I think. I know she does rodeo of some kind, but I can't remember what sport in rodeo she does. But that alone had me intrigued because I adore Powerless by Elsie Silver, which is hockey cowboy. And so any idea of like a hockey cowboy with a single dad thrown in there is kind of my ideal book. And I don't want to go into this with too many expectations or too high of a thought or a standard of it, but I do have really high hopes for it, and I kind of am praying that it's going to be a 5-star read for me because, ooh, it has everything in it that I would love. The next two books I don't know too much about. All Too Well, I know, is a small town firefighter romance, and I have been itching to get into more firefighter books. So if anyone has any firefighter romances that they love, please leave them in the comments because I really need to read more. And that's kind of all I know about this book and as to why I'm deciding to pick it up. Same with Savor It. I only know that this is a small town fake dating situation where her ex is getting married or is engaged, and she feels like the whole town is pitying her, and he is the new guy in town. He's a chef from New York and he's trying to open a restaurant, but he's the new guy. So a lot of people in town are kind of suspicious of him. So she proposes to him, if we fake date, it'll look good for me, it'll look good for you in the restaurant. It's a win-win situation for everybody. So I've heard great things about this. I've heard great things about this author. So fingers crossed it is just as good as everybody says. The last 5 books on my 25 for 2025 are a mix of fantasies. So I actually read one of these already. I've read Most Ardently, which is a queer retelling of Pride and Prejudice, which I will just say I really enjoyed. I thought it was a really fun short read, and I'll talk about it more in my January reading wrap-up, but I highly recommend. It is a YA read, so just keep that in mind as well. There we have Legend of the White Snake, which from what I understand is a Chinese fantasy retelling. It is about a white snake spirit who turns into a boy and has to kind of hide the fact that he's a white snake, but falls in love with one of the crown princes. So I don't know much more than that, but that alone had me hooked. I love Su Lin Tan's writing, and I found this book as a recommendation that I think she put on her story, having read it and really enjoyed it, or maybe it was in a recommendation video with some of her books, and either way, I'm super intrigued and excited to pick this one up. The second book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series is on my TBR. I'm actually planning on probably reading it this coming week, and I'm scared because I've been collecting the paperbacks, so I have to wait for the third book to come out in a paperback before I can read it, and I don't think that's coming out until April or May. But I've heard that the drop off between the second book and the third book is really big, so I was kind of putting off reading the second book because I almost picked it up right away after I finished the first book in 2024. And now I can't wait anymore because I adore Jax and Evangeline, and I need to know more of their story. If you read Caraval and you liked Caraval, I definitely recommending just picking up this series. If you are like me and you first heard about the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, I do recommend going back and reading Caraval because it sets you up perfectly for the world that Once Upon a Broken Heart is in, and you get introduced to Jax a little bit in that book, and I think if you knew these books before reading Caraval, it changes your mind about how Jax is portrayed in that, and I just think it's better to just go in the order that the author wrote. I think Caraval sets everything up beautifully, and the series is just as good as Once Upon a Broken Heart, so I might be biased because it's my second favorite fantasy series after One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns. So the next book on my list I actually am probably taking off of my TBR for 2025, and I have a reason. So that book is The Ever King, and I saw a lot of people talking about The Ever King, hyping it up, saying it was really great. This one I know for sure is Fae Pirates. Already I'm in. Game in. That's all I needed to know. However, I learned that the Ever King Fae series is kind of like the Graham Effect, and there's a series before that that follows all of the parents and introduces some of the characters in this series. So I am going to go back and read that series first. So technically I am still going to get to this book. I just don't know if I'm going to get to this book this year. However, I am excited about that series as a whole because I've heard it's really good, so I will keep you posted on that. The final book that I have on my 25 books of 2025 is The House of Bane and Blood, which I really wanted to read last year. I saw it on a TikTok being described as a fantasy version of Peaky Blinders, which is my favorite show, kind of all time. So that got me interested in it. And I kept putting it off for whatever reason. And then I saw that the second book in this duology came out. So now I don't have to wait. So now it's definitely on my TBR. I want to get the physical copies of it because I already know I'm gonna like it. Like, I already can tell based on the reviews, based on the description, based on the covers. I already know that it's gonna be a favorite. Thank you so much for watching my video. If there are any books that you think I should add to my 2025 TBR, I would love to know. And if any of these are on your 2025 TBR, let me know and maybe we can share our thoughts on it.